It's another Friday, so of course it's another Friday the 13th movie review. And this week we're talking about the one that quite a few people have messaged me saying that they're waiting for. So when your series has nowhere else left to go, where do you go? Space, of course. Fucking Jason in space. Jason X is brought to us by director James Isaac and stars Kane Hodder, Lexa Doing, and Lisa Ryder. So yes, this is Jason in space. As ridiculous as that sounds, it is a thing. They went there, they did that. Apparently they were trying to get a Freddy vs. Jason movie off the ground, but just not being able to find any traction there, so they said, hey, what else can we do in the meantime? Let's go to space. Seems like the logical path to go. Now, if the behind the scenes reports are to be believed, the original script for Jason in Space, or Jason X, was pretty epic. It had a completely different tone, and it was just supposed to be really cool, but they just didn't have the money to make that, plus there was a whole lot of turbulence behind the scenes with the makers of the film. So what we ended up with was this unintentional, I think, comedy horror that, honestly, when I first saw it, I didn't like it at all, but going back all these years later, I had a fairly good time with. Much like the previous Jason Goes to Hell, this is not a good movie. Like, not at all, but it is still fun. The Friday the 13th series by this point has pretty much become a parody, and they lean hard into that in this film. So much so that there's a scene in this movie where they flat out parody one of the most popular scenes from one of the earlier movies in the series. That all taking the girl in a sleeping bag and whacking her up against the tree thing that they did in part 7, yeah, they do it here to comedic effect. Trying to explain the story of this movie just really is foolhardy unto itself. There's just not much of a story here. It's pretty fucking stupid. They get Jason in space in the future and they fight him. That's about it. Now they do defeat him at one point, but then like nanobots bring him back to life where he's like half machine, half Jason, and pretty much unstoppable at that point. And the character does look kind of neat, yet really fucking ridiculous. They call this version of Jason Uber Jason, by the way. And it's probably the most early 2000s thing to ever early 2000s. This is a movie with a female android that wants to be more human, so she's trying on nipples and they fall off. I mean, that's what we got here. This is what you have to look forward to. You can't take this shit serious. You have to go into this movie with that perspective and just have a good time with it. But if you are able to let go of what Friday the 13th used to be and just accept what it has become at this point, I think that you can actually have a fairly good time with this movie. Is it so bad it's good? Yeah, I guess so. That's kind of how this movie will be classified. This is a good time to watch with a crowd of people and just have a fun time laughing at all the ridiculous, dumbass shit that happens on screen. It does seem at times, though, that the movie is in on the joke. I will give them that much. They are definitely having fun with this whole premise. There's pretty much nothing in this movie that is ever taken seriously. And as ridiculous and more or less non-existent as the story is, I will say there was enough going on there to keep me interested. Not so much in the story, just more in what ridiculous, crazy, over-the-top thing was going to happen next. Now, the movie does have a fairly abrupt and kind of unsatisfying ending when you look at it. It seems like they had something bigger in mind and then just ran out of money and said, okay, we got to end it here. But given all the ridiculous, over-the-top shit that happened leading up to that point, it's okay. I was okay with them ending it there. Probably best that they did. It was right at about an hour and a half, and if it had gone much more than that, it probably would have started to get tedious. Now, much like the last film, something that is really good here is the special effects, most notably the gore effects. They're real nice. This movie is really gory and has no shame. It shows everything. You want all the violence and over-the-top goriness, it is here. Now, it takes place in the future and in space, so obviously there are going to be some other special effects here that we haven't got in previous installments. And those effects are kind of wildly inconsistent. Whenever they try and integrate CGI into the mix, it's just not that great. This is 2001, good CGI was around, but for a Friday the 13th movie, good CGI was not around. There's not a tremendous amount of CGI in the movie, but there is definitely more here than there ever has been in this series. It does kind of fit in line with the kind of corny, hokey nature of the film, but I'm not gonna lie that the CGI effects do stand out. They're not great. Now, all the sets and everything are real-world practical sets, and they look really neat, and they also use a lot of miniatures and models. All of these practical effects, which I will say is most of the effects in the film, do actually look pretty good. They look kind of like, say, something like Farscape, type or around that time period, those TV shows. So they do kind of have like this pseudo retro vibe that I did actually enjoy. It's very lo-fi, but there is something about it that's a bit charming. This is kind of like the Friday the 13th movie that the Sci-Fi Channel made. That is to say that it is very B-movie. The performances, much like the story, are pretty stupid and ridiculous, but also, much like the story, a lot of the time, they're a bit self-aware. And that self-awareness does add to the entire experience. It makes it all the more better. Yes, they're not good performances, but it's okay because they're kind of winking and nodding at the camera, if you will. They work within the confines of this hokey, goofy universe that they've created now. This is not your traditional Friday the 13th. This is definitely something totally different. So if nothing else, you can never accuse them of not trying something new. Guys, Jason X is a terrible movie, but it's a terrible movie that is a terribly good time. Its story is about as thin as a frog's hair split thrice. The effects, while some of them do have that lo-fi throwback charm, some of them are pretty bad. This movie is a far cry from what the Friday the 13th series once was. And if you go into it looking for a traditional Friday the 13th flick, then you are going to be disappointed. But if you go into this thing looking for something really over the top, crazy, and new, and are able to just let loose and have a good time with this ridiculous, stupid little story, then I think that you will have a good time with it. It ain't the best Friday the 13th movie, and that's for damn sure, but what it may be is the most fun Friday the 13th movie, and what else it is absolutely worth a rent.
All he wanted was this.
I have to return some videotape.
I know! Jason X, worth a rent? I mean, I didn't see it coming, but like I said, if you go into this thing with the right mindset, you can have a good time with it. So if you're looking for an entertaining, goofy, just really self-aware time for the night, then check out Jason X, and I think you can have a really good time. So there it is, guys, my review of Jason X. If you enjoyed and want more content like this, hit that subscribe button and help my little channel grow. If you want to help out the channel, check out my Patreon in the description below and become a jarhead and get some of the awesome benefits that go along with that, like these guys. And possibly join my top tier and become a bad motherfucker like my man Greg. If you liked what I had to say, give me a like. If not, let me know in the comments below why. And as always, stay sexy, space.
I don't think he's out there.
Why don't you just stick your head out and have a peek?
It's okay, he just wanted his machete back!
So timeline-wise, this would actually be the final Friday the 13th movie within the original series. However, there is one more Friday the 13th movie that came chronologically before this one, but by release after this one. And that would be the one that they've probably been working up to for quite a few movies at this point, and they finally got it made. Of course, I'm talking about Freddy vs. Jason. They finally made it, and they finally integrated my personal favorite horror icon. And I got lots to say about it, bitch!